They say the worst kind of fear isn't what you see. It's realizing no one's coming for you. It was past midnight when Ethan's truck broke down on a desolate stretch of highway that didn't exist on any map. No lights, no signal, no sound, just miles of empty road swallowing the world whole. He thought it was just bad luck, until he saw someone standing in the middle of the lane. A barefoot woman, pale as bone, holding a child's toy that squeaked once, and even though she never moved her lips. When Ethan blinked, she was gone. But the sound of that squeak echoed from behind his truck, right where he found a single blood-stained footprint. That's when he realized he wasn't alone in the middle of nowhere. Ethan Walker had been driving for 14 hours straight, another lonely haul across the Midwest, delivering machine parts to a warehouse somewhere in Illinois. He always said he liked the solitude, that the road cleared his head. But tonight, the road felt different. The world outside his windshield was an ocean of black. No taillights, no gas stations, no signs. Just the hum of his engine and the whisper of tires on asphalt. Then, without warning, the truck shuddered. The dashboard lights blinked twice, and everything went dark. The engine died mid-roll, the steering wheel stiff in his hands. The rig coasted to a stop on the shoulder of the highway, headlights flickering before cutting out completely. "Come on," he muttered, twisting the key again. Nothing. Not even the click of a relay. He glanced at his GPS. The screen was frozen, the route line ending abruptly in the middle of blank gray space. No road, no town, just nothing. When he opened the door, the night hit him like ice water. The air was too still, too quiet. He flicked on his flashlight and stepped out. Gravel crunched under his boots. Behind him, his truck loomed like a dead giant, headlights off, emergency lights refusing to flash. He listened. Nothing. No crickets, no wind. Not even the hum of distant highway traffic. Ethan had driven across every kind of night. Fog, snow, deserts that whispered with heat. But he'd never heard silence like this. It wasn't peaceful. It was wrong. He popped the hood, shining his flashlight inside. Everything looked fine. No smoke, no smell of oil or burnt wire. When he touched the engine block, it was still warm. Too warm. Like it had just been running seconds ago. "All right," he mumbled. "Battery's fine, fuel line's fine, so what the hell's the problem?" That's when he heard it. A faint crunch. Someone was walking on the gravel behind him. Ethan straightened up fast, heart hammering. "Hello?" Silence. He slowly turned, flashlight sweeping across the road. The beam cut through a thin layer of mist that hadn't been there before. It drifted low, swirling around the tires of his truck. No one. He took a step forward, scanning the darkness. Another crunch, this time closer. His pulse quickened. "Hey, who's there?" Nothing answered. The light flickered in his hand, and for a split second, he saw her. A woman standing dead center in the road. Barefoot. Wearing a soaked white dress that clung to her thin frame. Her hair was long, tangled, dripping wet as though she had walked straight out of a lake. In her hands she held a small, one-eyed stuffed rabbit. Ethan froze. His mind scrambled to make sense of it. Maybe an accident? Maybe she needed help? He lifted his flashlight. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" She didn't move, didn't even blink. He took a cautious step forward, boots crunching softly. The woman's head tilted slightly, just a few degrees, too slow to be natural. The rabbit in her hands gave a faint squeak. Ethan stopped. His mouth went dry. "Listen, I can call for help," he said carefully. "Just tell me what happened." The woman tilted her head the other way, the motion jerky, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The air around Ethan felt heavy, pressing on his chest. Then her voice moaned soft, broken, but clear. "You shouldn't have stopped." He froze. What did you say?" But the road was empty. The woman was gone. Vanished. No footsteps, no trace, nothing. Ethan spun in circles, scanning the road, the ditches, the fields. The fog thickened around him, curling like smoke. He ran toward where she'd been, but the pavement was bare, except for one thing. By the door of his truck, a single bloody footprint. Small, bare, fresh. He backed away, hands trembling. No, no, no. He climbed back into the cab, slamming the door and locking it, breathing hard. The cab was pitch dark, the smell of oil and cold metal filling his lungs. He turned on his flashlight again and froze. On the passenger seat right beside him lay the stuffed rabbit, one eye missing. Mud streaked across its fur. For a long moment, Ethan didn't move. He just stared. His throat tightened, his heartbeat like thunder in the silence. And then, a whisper. From the back of the cab. "You shouldn't have stopped." He whipped around, but there was nothing there. Just the empty dark, and the faint sound of the rabbit's squeak echoing like a heartbeat that didn't belong to him. Outside, the fog swallowed the truck whole. Ethan had no idea that this road, the one he thought led nowhere, had already taken him somewhere he'd never return from. Ethan didn't remember falling asleep. One moment he was gripping the steering wheel inside his silent truck, eyes wide open. And the next, there was a knock. Soft, rhythmic, coming from outside the driver's window. He jolted awake, gasping. The world outside was still drowned in fog. The beam of his flashlight had died. His digital clock flickered 3:03 a.m. Over and over again. Frozen knock, knock, knock. Ethan turned slowly, his stomach twisting into knots. Nothing. Just the fog pressing against the glass. Enough of this, he muttered, grabbing his jacket. He couldn't just sit here in the dark waiting for whatever that was. Maybe there was a farmhouse nearby, someone who could help. Maybe. He stepped out of the cab, the cold air slicing through him. The mist curled around his legs like fingers. Every breath came out white and shaky. Then in the distance hand he saw it, a faint warm glow cutting through the fog. Not headlights, not the moon, a light, a single flickering yellow light, like from a porch lamp. Ethan squinted. A house out here? The highway stretched flat for miles. He hadn't seen a single turnoff in over an hour before the truck broke down. But there it was, faint but real. He hesitated. Then, grabbing his flashlight, he began walking toward it. The road under his boots turned from asphalt to dirt, then to mud. The air grew heavier, damp and electric. Every step seemed to pull him deeper into the fog, though the light ahead never seemed to get closer. After what felt like half an hour, the shape began to emerge, tall, crooked, like something abandoned decades ago. A 2-story farmhouse. Windows shattered, paint peeling off in long strips. The porch sagged under its own weight. But the light was on. A single lantern hung above the front door, flickering weakly. "Hello?" Ethan called out, voice trembling slightly. "I need help. My truck broke down a few miles back." No answer. He took a few cautious steps up the creaking porch. The boards groaned under his boots. The front door stood slightly ajar, swaying in the wind. Inside was darkness. He pushed it open slowly. The hinges screamed, "Hello?" His flashlight beam cut through the dust. The room inside looked like it had been untouched for decades. Furniture covered in white sheets, a broken mirror on the far wall, faded wallpaper peeling in strips. The air smelled of rot and something else. Old rain. He stepped inside. The floorboards creaked beneath him, echoing like footsteps that didn't quite match his own. Then, from upstairs, came a faint thud. He froze. "Hello? Is someone there?" Silence. Then another thud, heavier this time. He gripped the flashlight tighter, forcing his feet to move toward the staircase. Each step moaned like it was warning him to turn back. At the top of the stairs, a narrow hallway stretched into darkness. All the doors were closed, except one slightly open, light spilling from the crack. "Hey, I'm just looking for a phone," he said softly. His own voice sounded too loud in the stillness. He reached the doorway and pushed it open. The room was empty. No furniture, no windows, just a single wooden rocking chair in the center, slowly swaying back and forth. It creaked rhythmically, as if someone had just stood up and left. Ethan's light trembled. The air was freezing, his breath visible. Then he noticed something on the wall, a set of old photographs. He stepped closer. The frames were dusty, the glass cracked. Each photo showed the same woman, pale, long, dark hair, always standing beside a child holding a stuffed rabbit. The same rabbit now sitting in his truck. His blood ran cold. He stumbled back, and the rocking chair stopped. Dead still. Then, in the reflection of the cracked glass, he saw movement behind him. He spun around, but the hallway was empty, except for a small, wet footprint leading toward the stairs, the same size as the one he'd found by his truck. Ethan stood frozen at the top of the stairs, flashlight trembling in his hand, the beam cutting through the swirling dust. The wet footprint on the wooden floor glistened faintly, as if it had just been made seconds ago. He followed its path with his eyes. It trailed toward the staircase, then vanished into shadow. His chest rose and fell sharply. He'd seen strange things on the road before. Car crashes, wild animals, the occasional weirdo hitchhiker. But this was different. This wasn't something out there. This was something in here. The silence was unbearable. Then, creak. Ethan spun around, the flashlight jerking toward the noise. The rocking chair had started moving again. Slow, steady, as if an unseen weight had returned to it. "All right," he whispered, voice shaking. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the faint whisper of wind through the broken glass panes. He forced himself down the hall, shining his light into each room. Empty, abandoned. But every time he turned away, he could swear he heard breathing, faint, ragged. Just behind him, at the end of the hallway, was a narrow door, the kind you'd expect to lead to a closet. But when he touched the handle, it was cold, too cold. Frost bit into his palm. He pulled the door open. Behind it wasn't a closet. It was a stairwell, leading down into blackness. The smell that rolled up from below was rancid, like soil mixed with old blood and rain-soaked wood. His flashlight beam flickered. He hesitated, swallowing hard. "Just find a phone." "Get out," he muttered to himself. He started down, each step groaning under his weight. The deeper he went, the colder it became, until he could see his own breath again. The walls around him were damp, covered in what looked like mold, though some of the dark streaks had a reddish hue. At the bottom, the space opened into a basement. Old furniture lay rotted and broken. A wooden table stood at the center, with melted candles surrounding it. In the corner, an old CRT television sat unplugged. Its screen cracked but faintly reflecting the light of his flashlight. He stepped closer, then froze. A voice. Soft. Childlike. From somewhere in the darkness behind him. "Are you lost?" Ethan spun around, heart pounding. "Who's there?" No one. The flashlight flickered again, the beam sputtering across the walls. And that's when he saw them. Handprints. Dozens of them. Small, pale, pressed into the damp, concrete walls as if from the inside, each leaving streaks of dark, residue trailing downward, his breath caught in his throat. Then the TV screen buzzed to life, static bursting through the silence. Ethan stumbled back, raising his flashlight toward it. Through the haze of white noise, a faint image flickered on the screen. A highway under heavy fog. His highway. And there, frozen in the image, was his own truck, and with someone standing next to it. A woman barefoot holding the stuffed rabbit. Jesus Christ. He whispered, backing away. Then the voice came again, closer now, echoing around him. She didn't want to be alone. Ethan's flashlight beam darted across the basement. The handprints seemed to shift, their outlines glistening wet now as if freshly made. Something moved in the shadows, low to the ground, scurrying along the wall. He backed toward the stairs. "I don't want any trouble, all right? The flashlight died. Darkness swallowed him whole. For a heartbeat, there was only his ragged breathing. Then, the sound of the rocking chair again, but this time, coming from above him. It was followed by another sound. The slow creak of floorboards directly overhead, as if someone was walking in a circle. Then came a whisper right next to his ear. "She said you'd come back." Ethan swung the dead flashlight wildly, panic surging through him. And in the strobe of lightning that flashed through the broken basement window, he saw her, the woman. Standing inches from him, Her face hollow, eyes pitch black, water dripping from her hair. And in her hand, the stuffed rabbit. But it wasn't a toy anymore. It was soaked, heavy, dripping red. When the light flickered again, she was gone. Ethan burst from the basement, stumbling into the hallway above like a drowning man gasping for air. His flashlight clattered to the floor, rolling in a circle before coming to rest against the wall. Every breath burned in his chest. He slammed the basement door shut, pressing his back against it. The wood was cold, damp. From behind it came a faint scratching, like fingernails dragging slowly across the inside of the door. He pressed harder. No. His heart was hammering so loud he could barely think. He looked down. Mud and streaks of red smeared his boots. His hands were shaking violently. That voice still echoed in his head. She said you'd come back. He didn't know where to go, and the front door was gone. Literally gone. Where the entryway had been, there was now a solid wall of rotted wood. He stared at it in disbelief. This can't be happening. He turned toward the window, only to find that outside wasn't night anymore. It was gray. Endless. Like fog had eaten the sky itself. Something was deeply wrong with this place. It wasn't just haunted. It was alive. Ethan ran back down the hall toward the room with the rocking chair. He had to find another way out, maybe through a window upstairs. But when he entered the room, he froze. The photographs on the wall were gone. In their place were maps. Dozens of them, old, yellowed, overlapping. Maps of the same highway he'd broken down on. But each one had something different. Red ink scrawled over certain areas, circles drawn around unmarked roads. He leaned closer. The handwriting looked almost frantic, shaky, desperate. At the bottom of one map, written in red marker, were the words, "They never left." Suddenly the walls began to whisper. Faint voices overlapping, growing louder, like a radio tuning between channels. Children laughing. A woman crying. The sound of tires screeching. Then, a violent bang from behind him. Ethan spun around and saw the rocking chair lying on its side, moving as if it had just been thrown. Something was in the room with him. His eyes darted around until they caught something new. Something carved into the wooden floorboards beneath the chair. He crouched down, brushing the dust away with trembling fingers. It was a name, Ethan Walker, his own name. He staggered back, his mind reeling. No, that's not possible. Then a memory flickered. The fog, the screech of tires, a child's laughter. The toy rabbit on the road. He saw flashes. Headlights cutting through fog. A small figure in the middle of the lane, his foot slamming the brake too late. The impact. The scream. The silence after. His knees gave out. Oh my God. He hadn't broken down on that road. He had crashed. He looked up at the wall again, and this time the maps were gone. Instead, black writing covered every inch of peeling wallpaper. You never left her behind. She's still waiting. Go back. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He grabbed his flashlight again, backing toward the door. No, this isn't real. This isn't... But then the door slammed shut on its own, trapping him inside. The light flickered violently, the beam cutting through the thickening air, and in its glow he saw her again. The woman. Standing in the corner of the room, dripping, her face pale and soft. Almost human now. In her arms, the stuffed rabbit. And behind her, the faint outline of a little girl holding her hand. Ethan's voice cracked. I didn't mean to... The woman raised her hand, silencing him. The air grew still. The whispering stopped. For a long, unbearable moment, they just stared at him. The woman's hollow eyes filled with something that wasn't hate. It was sorrow. Then softly she said, "Then don't leave us again." The light shattered. The room went dark. The darkness was total, deep and suffocating. Ethan couldn't tell if his eyes were open or shut. He felt the weight of the air pressing down on him, heavy with damp earth and something else. Memory. Somewhere in that blackness, the woman's voice lingered, soft, fragile, echoing like it was coming from underwater. You left us there. In the fog. Ethan's chest tightened. He could see flashes now. Images burned behind his eyelids. The highway. The storm. Headlights slicing through the mist. The shape of a woman and child in the road, and the scream that followed. He stumbled forward, breath ragged. I tried to stop. I didn't see you. His words dissolved into the void, then a faint click. The flashlight flickered back to life in his trembling hands. He wasn't in the house anymore. He was standing on the same highway where his truck had broken down. The fog was thicker than ever, rolling across the asphalt in ghostly waves. The truck sat a few yards ahead, headlights dim, engine silent. The stuffed rabbit lay on the road, right where he remembered seeing the woman the first time. Ethan stepped closer, his heart pounding. If this is what you want, I'll stay. I'll stay until it's right. His voice cracked with guilt. I didn't mean to leave you. I thought it was just an accident. The fog shifted. From within it, two silhouettes emerged. The woman and the child. The little girl clutched the rabbit to her chest, its fabric torn, soaked with dark stains. The woman's eyes glowed faintly, not with anger, but with grief. Ethan sank to his knees. I'm sorry. I never stopped. I should have come back. The woman slowly raised her hand, pointing toward the truck. Through the fog, Ethan saw something new. His truck door was wide open, and inside, sitting motionless in the driver's seat, was himself, his own lifeless body. The windshield was shattered, blood streaked down the glass. His hands were still gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white. He staggered backward, eyes wide. No, that's not. The woman stepped closer. You never left this place, Ethan. You've been here all along. The truth hit like a knife. The broken clock. The endless fog. The frozen time, 3:03 a.m. He wasn't the one lost in the middle of nowhere. He was the middle of nowhere. The crash hadn't just killed them. It had trapped all three of them here in that one eternal moment. Ethan's breath came out in shudders. Then what do I do? The woman looked down at the child, who now smiled faintly. The first hint of peace in all this darkness. Set her free. Ethan looked toward the little girl. She held out the stuffed rabbit, trembling, and placed it in his hands. He understood then. The rabbit was never a curse. It was a tether, a reminder. He walked toward the edge of the highway where the fog seemed to pulse like a living thing. He knelt down, pressing the rabbit gently into the dirt. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears cutting through the grime on his face. You can rest now. The fog began to lift. The road brightened. The air turned warm golden, as if the sun was finally rising after endless night. When Ethan turned back, the woman and child were gone. Only faint footprints remained, leading away into the light. He felt the weight lift from his chest. For the first time he could breathe. He smiled weakly, whispering, Guess I wasn't meant to drive out of here after all. Then, the sound of an approaching engine broke the silence. A pickup truck slowed to a stop beside the wreck. A man stepped out, confused, calling for help. Inside the ruined cab, the rescuers would find Ethan's body, and the stuffed rabbit resting peacefully on the dashboard, clean, untouched, like new. But as the camera pulls back, the road stretches endlessly into the horizon. Empty, silent, wrapped in soft fog. And faintly, over the wind, a voice whispers, Sometimes, the only way out of nowhere is to stop running from what haunts you.